internet. It is already almost the end of 2018, which means it's time to start thinking about next year's reading. So today I'm here with my list of top 10 books that I want to get to in 2019. This is a goal that I make every year, and it's usually a selection of books. Some of them are the first book in a series that I really want to start and I just haven't gotten around to, or some of them are just books that I really want to read, but I kind of need a little extra push to read, if that makes sense. I've put together a list of 10, and I'm going to go through them with you now. The first book on my list is A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. This is the second book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, and I just need a little extra push to read this one. A Game of Thrones was actually on my list in 2017, and I read it, and I really loved it. And I've been meaning to listen to the audiobook for this one ever since, and I just haven't been able to get myself to do it. As much as I want to read these books, I think the size of them is very daunting. And so I've had a hard time convincing myself to listen to this one. So I decided to put it on the list for 2019 to kind of give me a little extra push to get back into the series. And I'm hoping that once it gets closer to the time that the TV show comes back on, maybe I'll be in the mood for it anyway, and that'd be a good time to listen to this one. The next book on my list is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. This is an adult thriller type book. I've never read it. I've owned this book for a long time, since before I started BookTube, and I bought it after I saw the movie. I ended up going to see the movie before I read the book, imagine that. But it made me want to read it, and now it's been long enough since I've seen the movie that I think I've forgotten enough to read the book. All I really remember about this story is that it's about a man whose wife disappears, and I believe that the police suspect the guy, what's his name? Nick. They suspect Nick to have killed her, but he didn't. And that's really all I remember. I remember like little bits and pieces, but not enough to where I'm gonna basically be reading a story I already know, if that makes sense. I think this upcoming year will be a really good time to read this. The next book on my list for next year is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I have never actually read either of Rainbow Rowell's adult books. I've only read her YA books, and I've owned this book for a couple of years now, and I just haven't read it, and I really want to because I love her YA. I really want to try this out. I believe like a rom-com to do with email back in like the late 90s. I'm going to assume it's a romance novel because that's kind of Rainbow Rowell's thing, and also it just kind of has that look. But I think with this one I just need a little push to read it, even though I want to read it. So I decided to put it on the list for this year, and plus I wanted to break up some of these other books with a fluffy kind of contemporary, because I think that's what this is. So the next book on my list is Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. I actually started this one earlier this year. I was listening to the audiobook and I had a really hard time getting into the audiobook. Like, I liked the story and I was interested in the story, but I didn't like listening to it on audio. And I was reading a couple of other physical books at the time, so I just put it down to start it again later, and then I never did. So I decided to put it on my list for 2019 to get me to read it, because I was interested in the story. I only got this far into the audiobook, so not very far, but it's, I think, kind of an apocalyptic type story about a theater troupe, and that's really all I remember. So I'm going to give this one another shot. I think I'll actually really enjoy it. I've heard amazing things about it. I'm definitely gonna read the physical copy this time around. The next book on my list is The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. And I bought this book around the time that the movie was coming out, but I haven't gotten to see the movie yet. I haven't had a chance to read the book yet, but I really want to do both of those things, so I decided to put it on the list for 2019. This is a book about a teenager named Cameron who realizes that she's gay, and her parents end up dying in a car crash, so she goes to live with her aunt, I think? Or is it her grandmother? Oh, it's both of them. And her aunt and her grandmother are very conservative, and when they find out she's gay, they send her to one of those camps that is supposed to fix you. I believe it's set in the 80s, I want to say. And I've heard it's really fantastic, and I really want to read this, so I'm definitely going to get to it next year. The next one on my list is a bit of a modern classic, and it's one that I have been interested in for a while, and I just haven't read it before, so I want this year to be the year. And that is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Oh, I remember watching this movie a really long time ago, but I don't remember anything about it. I really don't remember anything about the plot. All I really know is I believe the main character is a lesbian, but it's supposed to be really great, and I want to read it, so it's gonna happen. The next book on my list is The Hamilton Affair by Elizabeth Cobbs. I bought this when I kind of first discovered Hamilton the musical, and I started buying a few different books that were about Hamilton. And this one is about Elizabeth Schuyler. I think it's from her perspective, I'm not totally sure, but this is an adult novel. I believe it's just about Elizabeth Schuyler and Alexander Hamilton's relationship. I really haven't heard a whole lot about it. I know several people that kind of bought it like I did, but I haven't really heard very many reviews, so I don't know if it's been positive or negative, but I am interested in it. And so I decided to put it on the list for 2019. The next one on my list is actually a poetry book, and that poetry book is The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. I absolutely adored The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace, and I just have not gotten to this yet since it came out sometime in the summer, I think, and I really want to get to it. And since it's so short and it's a poetry book, it'll be the perfect thing to kind of squeeze in at some point when I'm in the midst of frantically trying to read these 10 books next year. So it'll be a good one to check off the list. Alright, we are down to 2 more. The next one is An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. I will be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the plot of this one. I just know it's the first book in a fantasy series that is supposed to be really, really good, and kind of like I said at the beginning of this video, I like to put some books on this list that are the first book in a fantasy series, so that way I can see if I want to read the series. And this is kind of a good way to power through the first book of all these series I'm interested in to see which ones I actually want to follow through with. So I decided to put this on the list because I've owned it for a while and I haven't read it yet, and I've heard it's really, really good. There are 3 books out now, and I think the 4th one may be coming out next year, or maybe it's the year after, I'm not totally sure. But I know that if I like this series, I definitely want to catch up before the next book comes out. So let's do it. And the 10th book on this list is another first book in a fantasy series, and that is Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. This one has been pitched as kind of like a YA Game of Thrones, and I've heard mostly good things about it. So I am definitely curious. I've been curious for a while, and I need to read it, so this year is going to be the year to see if I end up liking this series or not. So friends, that is the top 10 books I am going to be reading in 2019. So throughout the year when you watch my videos, you will hear me reference these every now and then. And that's all I got. Coming up, probably next week, I will be posting my full resolutions for the year, both bookish and non-bookish, so be on the lookout for that, but I will be referencing this video in that video. So if you are interested in keeping up with all that, you can hit subscribe, and that'll be it for this video, and I will see you guys next time with another video.